Hello. Hello. This is Andy Edwards, and I am about to do a live stream. And I've noticed my top. Where is it? It's got some toothpaste on there. I do apologise for looking so messy on the startup for this, and also my camera. It's not using the right camera, is it? I haven't got it on the right camera, have I? So how do I alter that? I might have to go with that. That doesn't make sense. Oh, this is not working. Never mind. We will have to go. Can anyone hear me okay? The audio looks very quiet. Good morning, Darren. I have no idea who is going to come out at the end of this video as being the greatest drummer of all time. In fact, I will be very surprised if we manage to work that out. So really, it's for you guys in the chat to suggest drummers, and I will knock them all down. But I'm a little concerned at the moment with the quality of this because this is not my camera, and I'm assuming it's not my microphone as well, which is a shame. None of the things I've got here to make this all nice and spiffy are working, and I don't understand why that is. Can I change the microphone? Doesn't look like it. Oh, that's a shame. Never mind. So people are saying it looks fine and sounds okay, so I will ignore that. So let's see the sort of list of drummers we're getting as the greatest drummer in the history of mankind. We've got one for Mitch Mitchell, we've got Buddy Rich, Art Blakey, Ian Pace, Chick Webb, Elvin Jones. And then someone says, where do you stand on Mike Tirana? Usually on his hands if I can, because I don't like anyone better than me. Harvey Mason, Virgil Denati, definitely my pick, says Terry. Terry Bozio, says John. We got Buddy Rich, Elvin Jones, Tony Williams, and then John Doherty has been sensible and said there is no greatest drummer. It's all down to personal taste. Well, it can't be down to personal taste entirely, because if you look at this list, we are getting definite drummers are cropping up more than once. So we've got Tony Williams has come up a few times. Elvin Jones has come up a few times. Tony Williams again. And so if these drummers are coming up over and over again, it means it isn't entirely subjective. There is a spread. And so we could actually go out and look at every single person in the world, you know, and poll them and see who they think the greatest drummer is. But of course, they would come up with the wrong answer because most people don't know what they're talking about. We could poll drummers and that would be more accurate, wouldn't it? But then wouldn't you want to poll all the greatest drummers out there? And if we're going to poll the greatest drummers out there, then why don't we just find the greatest drummer and ask him who the greatest drummer is, which of course he would then say himself because he would be the greatest drummer, right? So that is the problem we have here. It's not entirely subjective and it's not entirely objective, but it's interesting to have the conversation, right? So we've got lots of people putting in lots of drummers, right? What I'm going to do is pull out contenders, and I might pull out a few others, but Carl Karsnark has said, could you fill in for Danny Carey? Who could, who would? Well, I think I could fill in for Danny Carey. I used to be a progressive rock drummer, especially in the older days when I was doing that sort of thing all the time. I've listened to Tull quite a lot, and they are quite tricky and complex, without a doubt. But no more tricky or complex than other stuff I've played. In fact, the guitarist Fayan Zek, who I've played for, that stuff is a lot harder than Tull. So I'm pretty sure I could fill in for it. But Danny Carey is a wonderful drummer. The reason I put him on my overrated list was more a dig at the Tull fans who are hysteric over him and rate him so highly that they don't seem to be aware of other drummers like Matt Garsker, Gavin Harrison, and a whole host of incredible drummers on the progressive rock scene that would be equal to him. So, yes, I don't think Danny Carey is even the greatest progressive rock drummer, but he is a great drummer. Michael Esparza, has put Gene Krupa. Now, Gene Krupa could well be a contender for this because Gene Krupa was not only the sort of first drum star, but he was actually the first pop star. His film star good looks meant that he became a fan favorite, and because of his stardom, he started to do lots and lots of drum solos, and Benny Goodman would write features for him like Sing Sing Sing, where he would play these drum solos. And so I would say the idea of the showboating drummer that then goes on to Buddy Rich, and then we see with Ginger Baker with a Toad, and then Moby Dick, and then Neil Peart's great big drum solo he always did. I would say that's rooted in Gene Krupa. He was a good drummer, but he wasn't in the same league as the technical big band drummers like Buddy Rich and Louis Bellson and Sam Woodyard. So I would not put him on. Right. So Julie Musique has put the two of the sort of firm favourites, John Bonham and Neil Peart. John Bonham's an incredible drummer, and in a way he is underrated because I don't think people realise quite how much technique and chops he had. Plus, he was incredibly musical, had an incredible feel. He ticks all the boxes. But he actually came up at a time where he was playing alongside a whole bunch of other drummers that were equal in their greatness, especially on the British rock scene. And the first obvious one would be Ian Pace, who I could not see as being any worse in any way than John Bonham. And I would put it forward that certain drummers like, say, Phil Collins, believe it or not, or Barrymore Barlow, that were also playing in big rock bands at the time, were equal to Bonham. I would say Bruford was as well. Oh, I can't believe I'm sneezing. I've never sneezed on a video in my whole life, and now I'm live streaming. I'm sneezing. So Bonham was a great drummer. I think he benefited from being in an incredible band, and he really benefited from the production that he got from Jimmy Page. Right, what else have we got? Lobster is passing comment on I would say it's a remix of my wonderful song I premiered recently on a video, which was about my love of chocolate milk, and it was called I'm Waiting for My Milk. And a great artist called Henry Dark, who I'm doing a shout out for here, has done a remix of it, and I may put that onto one of my videos at some point. David Kornblatt is definitely correct when he says Mitch Mitchell is underrated. Not only is he underrated, that every great drummer, especially a lot of the fusion drummers in the 70s, really rates Mitch Mitchell. Narada Michael Walden is one of his favorite drummers. It's Stuart Copeland's favorite drummer. So yeah, he's a really, really underrated drummer. Not the greatest drummer in the world, though. David Arling II has put forth Budgie, the drummer with Susie and the Banshees. He is a very, very good drummer. I would love to do a video at some point where I look at the punk drummers, because actually they were very, very good, and I think it'd be worth looking at that. And Budgie, would he come out number one? I think Topper Hedden was pretty good. The guy out of the Stranglers, they were all very good. The guy for the Stranglers was very good. Right, so someone's put exploring, it's called Exploring the Musical Universe. So they have put Simon Phillips. That's the first one positive that I might be putting at the top of my list. That's definitely a contender for me. Simon Phillips can almost do absolutely anything, right? Someone said he's got the best sound. Doe Doxus has said he's got the best sound. He's got incredible technique. He can play any style from metal all the way through to jazz. He's an incredible reader. He can play classical music. He's an incredible session drummer, but he's got a very strong sound of his own. Yes, he's great. Absolutely fantastic. Of course, we're getting lots from Billy Cobham. of course, Billy Cobham is him and Narada Michael Walden are on the top of my favourite drummer list. But are they? Is Billy the best drummer? I think if Narada was here, he would be arguing that Billy Cobham is one of the greatest drummers of all time. Billy's something else, and the thing about Billy is Tony Williams gets a lot of credit, and he's playing in the 60s. He's quite spectacular. By the 70s, he's never quite gets in the groove, really. I don't think. And whereas Billy Cobham, the way Billy Cobham plays, for me, entirely changes drumming. If you're looking at a great drummer in 1965, they've got, a tom in front of them, a floor tom on the floor. They're playing in that sort of roundabout jazz way. It's coming from people like Max Roach. Then Cobham comes around and everything changes, absolutely everything. I can't list the stuff that Billy Cobham. There is a strong argument that Billy Cobham's the greatest drummer. That's the first one I've started talking about where I go, yeah. So I'm actually warming to Billy Cobham now as being the greatest drummer. So you guys have got to come up with things that might just knock Billy Cobham off the list. Chad Wackerman, fantastic drummer. Hal Blaine, session great. Steve Gadd. See, there's another guy. Steve Gadd's another guy that I would be tempted to put in my list. There is one name in my head, and we still have not seen it in the chat yet. If you were to ask me snap decision and say who's the greatest drummer in the world, I would say this guy, and we haven't seen them yet. Maurice Ravel's put Keith Moon, but I have to say, Maurice, it's I before E, except after C. In fact, if you go by that rule, you're right. I'm wrong. Someone said Richard Shafi, the greatest drummer. You won't know. You are right. Never heard of that person. Jeff Bosco's put not Dennis Chambers, but Matt Parker has put in one first name, the guy that was in my head, Vinny Colaiuta. I'm pretty sure Vinny could well be the greatest drummer of all time. Vinny. Who could touch Vinny? Who could touch Vinny that exists in the world? We're getting a lot of Virgil Denati. Virgil Denati is an incredible technician. He's from Australia. God knows what he was doing down there, because he suddenly emerged in the early 90s outside Australia. I remember it well, around about 94, 95. And one of my students went to see him doing a drum clinic. They brought him over from Australia to do a drum clinic in the UK. He had Steve Washington, who was playing for, I think it was Take That at the time, supporting him. And my students came back saying what he was doing. And I was turning around and going, well, that's not possible. You can't do that. And then I went and bought the video because of what they'd said that had just come out. And I couldn't believe anything like it. And a lot of those sort of Uber drummers that then came in, and I worked alongside a lot of these guys, people like Thomas Lang, Marco Miniman, Mike Nangini. There's a whole host of these sort of bionic drummers that had just took technique, a little bit like the guitarists did in the 1980s. These drummers in the sort of 2000 push drum technique off the edge. And a lot of that stuff we're seeing now on the internet with these bonkers drummers is really rooted in Virgil. I think he was the first drummer really to do that. Total Catastrophe said, I had lessons off Steve Washington at his house in the 90s, and then he's put nut job. Yes, poor old Steve did seem to be a little bit of a nut job. I'm sure he's not now, though. If Steve Washington is watching this, he was such a great drummer, and I had a lot of admiration. If he ever wants to get in touch and do an interview and put that stuff to bed, I think that would be really great. So if you don't know what we're talking about, tough. Kevin Nicholas, I guess you saw my post up the thread. Vinny Colaiuta is the Don in my book. Yeah, I'm Vinny and Billy. Omar Hakim's one of my favorite drummers. Cozy Powell. You know how much I love Cozy Powell. Okay, I absolutely love him. But when I listen to him now, he's not in the same league as most of the rock drummers at his time. It was much more about charisma and sound. He is great, but his chops weren't on the same level as even a John Bonham or Ian Pace. Michael Esparza's put Gary Husband. Gary Husband could well be the greatest musician in the world, because he is one of the few players I can think of who really is world class on two instruments, keyboards and drums. And he's literally world class on keyboards. In fact, when I listen to his keyboard playing, I'm finding it hard to find another keyboardist around that can play with the phrasing and interest. Of course, he's got all the chops, but Gary's keyboard playing, I absolutely love. It's so inventive and fresh and interesting. As a drummer, he was the other jigsaw piece in the sound of Alan Holdsworth. And on the IOU album, Gary Husband, I think, working off what Alan was doing, changed the way that drummers work behind a soloist. Before then, everybody was doing this sort of fusion drumming behind the soloist. That Gary came in, and Vinny did it on Shut Up and Play Guitar with Zappa. And those two sort of approaches to comping, for me personally, have been absolutely huge influence. And that's where you start to think about moving the beat up, back and some forth, and not having a backbeat necessarily, but not playing quiet in jazz, not swinging, but having a swing in there. So yes, Stefan Radin has put forth Tony Williams and Steve Gadd, without a doubt, and they're both brilliant. Lenny White, massively underrated, an incredible technician. I remember back in the day when the one-handed drum roll that Jojo Mayer was pushing, and there were courses online where it would teach you to play a one-handed roll, and a whole bunch of drummers were trying to do this one-handed roll at some huge music festival. And Lenny White came walking down, and he just said, "You don't do it like that. Grab the stick off somebody," and then just whipped out a really fast single-handed roll, which means that he was doing it before anybody else. The single-handed roll actually originates with Kenwood Denard, another incredible drummer. He used to do a single-handed roll, a push-pull technique on his cymbal. So yes. I'm sure I heard somebody cut a phone call then, but it can't be me. Oh, now Mike Maselli has said Try Like Gertu. I've seen Try Like Gertu a couple of times live. I mean, it's astonishing. If he was a drummer, it would be astonishing for some bloke sat on his knees, with no bass drum. He could take anybody on, yes, without a doubt. Wasn't Buddy doing the one-handed roll? He used to do a very fast singles with his left hand, and I'm pretty sure he could do a one-handed roll. There's lots of different ways of doing one-handed roll. Ian Pace used to do a one-handed roll. Now, someone's mentioned Matt Garsker. Matt Garsker is the drummer with Animals as Leaders. I watch his videos quite a lot. Animals as Leaders, for me, are just too overproduced. It just sounds all too perfect. And I don't enjoy it. And there doesn't seem to be any room for improvisation or stretching out. But when you watch Matt Garsker just playing, when they get him in a room and he just plays, he is absolutely astonishing. And I think at the moment on this planet, Matt Garsker is just astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. And we have a few drummers around today that are really incredible. Some of them as stylists, and some of them just as brute technicians. And there's a whole host of them. Matt Garsker's one of those, and he seems to be able to play everything from New Orleans funk to metal to thrash metal to jazz. So that's it. That's very interesting. Someone's mentioned El Siberiano, which is the guy with the big beard and the nose ring. What he does on the drums for me is absolutely incredible. I can't believe what he pulls off, and with so much ease. And he's a brilliant showman. One of the things with him is, and he's been quite upfront about this, he's a rock guy. Stick a chart in front of him or give him anything remotely complex, and I don't know whether he'll be able to do that. And you can tell that when he's watching Danny Carey. And I think his videos of Danny Carey, where he sits in astonishment because Danny Carey is playing an arranged drum part, going through different time signatures, is, I think, what has elevated Danny Carey up. Right, Neil Peart, he was amazing, but only did Rush, never branched out to do other genres. He did branch out to do other genres. He supported many drummers very wonderfully with his Buddy Rich memorial videos and gigs and shows, where he brought in all the great drummers in the world to play Buddy Rich tunes. You know, I think that was such an important thing in drum history, and it was great that he did that. But, and this is well known in the drum world, is on the first gig when he turned up and he started to play, it became quite apparent the difference in technical ability between him and all the other guys on the bill, which were people like Simon Phillips. I think Dennis Chambers was on it. I think Will Calhoun from Living Colour was on it. And this is what prompted Neil to go and get lessons. So Neil Peart would agree with me that it was the best drummer in Rush. And one of his things that he was brilliant at was orchestrating drum parts. Every single thing that Neil Peart is playing, he's worked out. When he went up on stage, he didn't really have the band in his monitors. He just had a rough idea of what was going on, a little bit of time, because when he played, he knew what the parts were. All right. Now, when I realized that about him, you got to understand, I absolutely love Neil Peart. But when I realized that about him, I went off him a little bit. And then once I realized he was playing from the book and by the book, you start to notice a certain stiffness in his playing. And this stiffness is sometimes more pronounced than other times. I mean, he's drumming on moving pictures is sublime. It's incredible. So Neil Peart is a troublesome choice. He really is. And without a doubt, the idea that Rush fans have about his ability is so elevated next to his ability. Is he one of the greatest progressive rock drummers of all time? Without doubt, massively influential, creates beautiful drum parts. He's got a lovely touch on drums. All those things are true, you know. So yes, Neil Peart's a real troublesome one. Stuart Copeland and Jamal Rashid has said, yeah, Stuart Copeland, I would say, is one of the greatest sound changers on the drums. There's not many. Who changed the sound of the drums? Not many. You know, Gene Krupa did, because he stopped playing all those coconuts and stuff and had two toms up, and that became the standard kit sound. Joe Jones, you know, who no one's mentioned, one of the greatest drummers of the 20th century. You know, and if somebody said Joe Jones was the greatest drummer, I'd agree. There's another one I'd throw in, Joe Jones. But anyway, Stuart Copeland in the late 70s, early 80s changed the sound of drums. Everyone started tuning their snares up. They had splash cymbals, you know, and they would, you know, playing these reggae beats and dropping, you know, not dropping stuff on the one. And another drummer that was doing something very similar to that, who is not spoken about in the same type of way, was Steve Johnson from Japan. But now I've thrown in Joe Jones. Joe Jones, and we haven't had him mentioned. Has anyone mentioned Joe Jones? Somebody said that Sonny Murray revolutionized drumming, period. I'd say there was a few other people in there as well. Rashid Ali would be another one. I was very influenced by free jazz drumming, and sometimes it's a little bit of a problem for me, because if I just start to sit down and play, my time is very free. And I studied that idea of time being free. And sometimes I wish I could play more of the tempo in. But yes, Chick Webb, incredible drummer. I'll tell you a fact about Chick Webb. Drum technique really comes from Sanford Moeller. And Sanford Moeller, this is a secret that people don't realize about drumming. Sanford Moeller, who didn't create the basic drum technique for drummers, which is called Moeller technique. He actually observed it in these drummers in the 1920s that were sat in old people's homes. He would go around to these old people's homes, and there'd be these guys who'd played in the Civil War, and they were playing in a certain way with a back grip here, and they were utilizing their wrists more than their fingers, like a timpani player would. And he put a book out. Now, Sanford Moeller, when he put that book out, he he put his own stuff in. The Ludwig put the book out, all the drummers read it, and the thing that he put in is he believed to play from the wrists, you had to have your elbows up. And there's a whole generation of jazz drummers, Gene Krupa's one of them, that play with their elbows up. And then he realized it was wrong. And that really tore a hole in molar technique. So we have a real problem with drumming, is that in that molar technique, the foundational technique, along with, say, I'd say there's Gladstone's technique, and you've got what Murray Spivak did, you know, a few other ideas. But in terms of technique, molar technique, what's come down, you know, through history is wrong. One of the few guys who really understood it was Jim Chapin, and Jim Chapin went around the world trying to explain the actual proper molar technique. So if you want to know about molar technique, go and look at Jim Chapin. Now, Jim Chapin lived to about 90 years old, I think, and I did meet him once at a Dennis Chambers clinic, but he was very close friends with my drum teacher. And so I felt that I got direct from the horse's mouth or Sanford Molar's mouth. I sort of I believe that I got that from it. Now, what's interesting is that when he was a younger man, Jim Chapin went to the gig in 1939 where the Benny Goodman Orchestra took on Chick Webb's orchestra, and so that meant Gene Krupa and Chick Webb, you know, came head to head, and the bands came head to head, and it was quite obvious on that gig that Chick Webb won. Of course, Chick Webb had a degenerative disease, and so he didn't grow above a certain height, and he didn't live past, I think, his 30s, and died very young. And the fact that people are still mentioning him now on this list is a testament to who he was. If he had survived, that we might be saying Chick Webb was the greatest drummer. His playing was legendary. Ben Finley has put Max Roach. Hello, Ben. How are you? I will get round to our video at some point, I promise. Ben has put Max Roach. Max Roach is one of the most important drummers in the history of drumming. And I'll tell you, this is interesting, being a live stream and just talking off the top of my head, is I'm telling you a lot of juicy stuff. And one juicy thing is that Buddy Rich Memorial, which is obviously full of Rush fans who think they know about drumming. When Max Roach got up on stage and started to do his famous hi-hat solo and start to do all his stuff, and Max was one of the greatest technicians, but the Rush audience started to boo him. Right? If I'm ever doing an overrated drummers or overrated musicians, it's not the musicians I'm having a go at, it's the fans. Jeffrey Jackson, I'm team Bill Bruford. Yes, incredible drummer. Ali Tabal has posited Elvin Jones. Elvin Jones is my favorite jazz drummer. I just absolutely love Elvin Jones. He's one drummer I will listen to. Henry Darker has facetiously mentioned Mo Tucker. Mo Tucker is nowhere near the greatest drummer. She would probably be languishing around about 3 or 4, I reckon. Sophie Tucker, however, the British musical star, that's a different one, right? So Robert Velasquez has mentioned Mark Mondesir, right? Mark Mondesir is one of the greatest drummers in the world. He's one of the greatest British drummers. He was a huge influence on me when I was coming up in the 80s, early 90s. I worshipped the guy because he was British. He was doing a lot of gigs around the UK, so I could go and see him play. He was playing in that sort of brutal, fast around the kit, you know, polyrhythmical style way before anybody else. Mark is an absolute genius on the drums. He's a big fan of the channel. I met up with him a couple of times, and he even came to see me play in London, and I had to do a drum solo in front of him, which felt like I was basically just standing on stage naked. It was a horrible feeling. Someone said Larnell Lewis, who's the drummer with Snarky Puppy sometimes. Larnell's incredible, really incredible. There is a whole breed of drummers out there. I can't even start to get into them. There's millions of them that are just jaw-dropping. So what do you do then? I mean, all these modern drummers like Larnell Lewis and Matt Garsker and Lewis Cole and J.D. Beck, and I mean, I could go on and on and on, you know. These guys were just destroy these drummers we're talking about in a way. So how does that make this conversation, mean anything? Chris Daddy Dave, what a drummer, one of my favorite drummers. Absolutely incredible. These are all, and these, I mean, my audience know what they're talking about. Look at this. I mean, we haven't had one Dave Grohl, but we've had Travis Barker, the drummer with Blink 182. Did anyone see the Sabbath gig when Danny Carey and Chad Smith and Travis Barker did the sort of drum battle between each other? Who won that? Without a doubt, Travis Barker. What he was doing on the drums was unbelievable. He's such a fantastic drummer, Travis Barker is. Such a fantastic drummer. He's up there, a phenomenal drummer. So, Carl Karlsnack has mentioned the gospel chops drummers. Yeah, this seems to have gone away a little bit. There was a certain point where everybody was playing gospel chops because of the Gospel Chops website. I'm trying to think of some of the names of those drummers who, I said, it's all gone into the past now. But the Gospel Chops has now transformed into a much more general, I would call it, Instagram way of playing. And so because of this Instagram way of playing, I've found that students will turn up. They will come for a lesson with me. They will sit down and also play, and they'll play an incredible groove, and then they'll play a couple of incredible fills. And I'm like, whoa, that's amazing. This guy's amazing. I don't know if I can do that. And then suddenly it's as though they've run off the end of the pier and there's no drumming left. And the reason is because these kids are just going on and learning licks. They get the licks down and then they wonder what it's about. When we listen to the drummers we're talking about, the Dennis Chambers or the Billy Higgins, the Elvin Jones, Bill Brufords, all these ones that are coming up on the list here, or at least the serious ones, those guys weren't doing that. When they played, those fills came from here and it related to the music. Greg Bisnet cannot be forgotten about, an absolute virtuoso drummer whose lovely personality and over-the-top way of conducting himself takes away, I think, a little bit from the fact that he's absolutely incredible. Dr. Insomnia said, if we say Andy Edwards, do we get free membership? I don't know how the membership works. I've tried my best. I've set them up. And I wish I could give free membership away. I also wish I could give free Patreon places away, so I could invite certain people in that would be enjoyable to have down, but I don't know how to do all that, so no. Soul Ensemble has put Barrymore Barlow down. I think of drummers in rock bands. I think if we start to look at all the progressive rock and classic rock bands that came out in the 70s, not jazz fusion drummers, not all those guys or session drummers, I would say Barrymore Barlow is the best. Yes, Dr. Insomnia. I wish I could, and I might be able to do. I don't know. I'm just really wish I knew how it works. I haven't done this live stream properly. I don't know whether. See this. I don't think this mic's working. Is it? No, and I don't think I've set up my nice expensive camera here. Look, I've got my camera. Look, I've set that up, and it's not doing anything. Right. I got this all sorted out, and now I've got to work out how to do it properly. I mean, this is all right, but look at me. I look like I'm talking through a fish tank, Somebody mentioned someone, Clive Bunker, who was the drummer before Barrymore Barlow, another incredible drummer. I used to play in a band called Quill, and he had two drummers in. Well, I had a drummer and a percussionist, me and Bev Bevan from ELO. And there was once where I couldn't do the gig, so I said to Bev, well, you'll have to get a dep in, I can't do it. So he rings up Clive Bunker, and my dep was bloody Clive Bunker from Jethro Tull. It's one of my proudest moments, and he had to have a tape. Well, he had to have some downloads to learn my parts. And then he came up to here, just around the corner from here, and I went round to see him, and he chatted through the tracks and asked what I was doing. Incredible. Bernard Purdie, field drummers. Who are the greatest field drummers of all time? Gad's in there. Harvey Mason would be in there for me. Mike Clark would be in there for me. Bernard Purdie would be in there for me. There's a whole bunch of them. Gaylord, the bloke from the Pointer Sisters. What a backbeat. Gaylord, can't remember his full name. Jim Keltner, another one. My pick for the best P-Funk drummer, it's Dennis Chambers, isn't it? Narada Michael Walden is definitely my favorite drummer. He is one of the greatest drummers. The thing I love about Narada is the spirit that is in his playing. I never feel intimidated by Narada's drumming, even though it is unbelievable and I can't do it. But I pick much more upon his joy. Guillaume Chabasson, which is a name I have read many times but never said, has put Vinny. Reese Parry has said Tal Farlow touches Vinny. I don't know if he's reporting a crime there, but of course Tal Farlow is a dead jazz guitarist, so I think he might be thinking of somebody else. But I saw Tal Farlow live before he died, which of course is the best way of seeing any musician. In a little pub just up the road from here. I couldn't believe he was on. It was incredible. Keith Carlock, another incredible drummer. Right, so we could carry on talking like this for a long time. We really could. But at some point, we have to make a decision. And by we, I mean me. I'm going to make the decision based upon your comments that have been coming through. And your comments have been very inspiring, to be honest. Tim Herb Alexander is one of the great field drummers. A great drummer, fantastic, absolutely brilliant. And who was the guy that replaced him? Brain, who started off in the Limbo Maniacs. An absolutely fantastic funk rock band. Does anyone remember the Limbo Maniacs? Late 1990s. I think Bill Laswell produced them. I loved that band. It was like a bit like well-produced Red Hot Chili Peppers. Jeffrey Special Sauce Clemens is a great funky drummer. Carl, you've got me there. I don't know who Jeffrey Clemens is. Could you tell me who that is? Lobster has put Penny Valentine. I don't know who that is, but I assume he's just putting in random Dada-esque choices, you know, like Winston Churchill or, I don't know, Reginald Bozaket. Who else could be a great drummer? I was going to say Roy Castle, but he actually was a great drummer. Who is the greatest drummer that's not a drummer? Karen Carpenter, Roy Castle, Jamie Oliver, Al Murray. They all play the drums very well, I've been told. Peter Sellers could probably do anything. I think Spike Milligan could play the drums as well. Peter Sellers, yes, yes, yes. Please use a noise gate. Your mic is perfect. I don't know what that means. I haven't got a noise gate here. Pierre Morland, one of my favorite drummers of all time. And see, these guys underrated because name a prog drummer that's better than Pierre Morland. And his touch is so beautiful. Chops, everything, sound absolutely brilliant. Radar for MASH, without a doubt. Jerry Lewis, great drummer. Sammy Davis Jr. We've got a whole list here. I really need to write these down because there's a whole video there on these types of drummers. Someone said, I like Waronka. Well, is that a hobby? Or is it a board game? Or are you talking about Jerry Waronka, who apparently isn't he out with Oasis at the moment? Greg Errico, great drummer. Steve Wonder, amazing drummer. Pit Pile, great drummer. Stevie Wonder. I mean, Stevie Wonder went bad when he stopped drumming. Am I right? Eric Grovat, heavyweight jazz drummer. Zach Starkey, great drummer. Dave Clark, don't know so much about him. I do know who he is. Zappa could play the drums. He was a drummer. Someone said he played the bicycle, but he was a drummer, and I think he was a pretty good drummer. I get the feeling he studied sort of drum corps rudiments, and you can hear that in his playing, and I think that's why he was drawn to ionization. Charlie Benante is my favorite of the thrash drummers. The best female drummer in history, right? There is some maniac on the internet called Andy Edwards, Rick Beato. Go and check this guy out. He's got a strange accent. He sits incredibly low in the screen, and then he criticizes me. And one of the things he criticizes me is if I don't mention female drummers. This is one video he's done, and I watched it the other day. I respect the guy. It sounds so insane what he's saying. he's really I don't know. It's just bonkers. Anyway, and he started running through a whole host of female drummers, which I could have predicted. There was only one I couldn't predict, but I could have predicted what he said. So I get a little bit annoyed by a situation where I'm supposed to just say drummers' names because they're female. For me, if I'm really objective about this and not a sexist person, but actually just think, who do I think is fantastic? Many years ago, I went and bought an Eric Marienthal album. And the reason I bought it was because Vinny was on it. Vinny Collegiate was on it. So any album that had Vinny on, I bought it. I took it home, slapped it on, and my jaw hit the floor as Vinny started up. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible, Vinny. And I picked the album up. And when I read down, it wasn't Vinny on the opening track. It was Terry Lynn Carrington. She's one hell of a drummer. Incredible drummer. Obviously, Sheila E., one of my favorite drummers. I had the Love Sexty tour on video. She did a drum solo on that, and I was very influenced by her. Very much like Cobham, she started off as a percussionist, being the daughter of Peter Escovedo, who played with Santana and a whole host of other people. And then, of course, is it Cindy Blackman, who is that sort of Tony Williams style drummer that is now married to Santana. Those are the three great female drummers. But I'm sure in the jazz scene now, there will be a ton of incredible female drummers. And I've seen a lot of them, and they're all incredible. The problem is when you start to talk about female drummers, that in the old days, the world was sexist. And so we don't seem to have those drummers in the key roles of innovation and playing in great big bands, you know. So that's it. And so it's very difficult to talk about. Alex Acuna, my God, an incredible drummer. I mean, Alex Acuna really got Chester Thompson sacked. And Chester Thompson's an amazing drummer. But when Alex came in on percussion, and then when Chester wasn't there, and Chester went away on holiday, I believe it. So Jacko started jamming with Alex Acuna. Chester Thompson's groove was much more aligned with Alphonso Johnson, and there's a shift there. But that busy style, 16th note style of Jacko, which was related to percussion playing, suited Alex Acuna. But I think Alex Acuna is one of the greatest drummers of all time. And on what track is it Havana off Heavy Weather, when he just does those flurries of fills? Absolutely incredible. Live and unreleased, that album is just mind-blowing. And I think the best live band was Alex Acuna. That is for me. I love Peter Erskine, and I love Peter Erskine on all the records, but when Peter Erskine came into Weather Report, I never liked his drumming as much as Alex Acuna or Eric Gravatt or any of those. Chad Wackerman was my least favorite Zappa drummer. Now, Chad Wackerman was in a bit of a situation with Zappa because in the 80s, Zappa had him playing electronic triggers. He had Simmons pads on the 1984 tour. And I think that really cramped his style. Chad Wackerman is one of the greatest drummers of all time. He's a Vinny level drummer. He can play absolutely anything. Now, I'm quite close to Stephen Wilson through Tim Bowness. And of course, Stephen Wilson has had a cavalcade of incredible drummers, including my mate Craig Blundell, which nobody's mentioned. Craig could definitely be on this list. And chatting to the guys, you know, I think amongst all those incredible drummers, Marco Miniman, Gavin Harrison, all those incredible drummers that have come through, there always seems to be a special mention for Chad Wackerman and his musicality. He did blow them away with what he did. Absolutely incredible. Someone's mentioned the incredibly rare Herschel Dwellingham. Right, and someone's got a message from their son. I did talk a little bit about Herschel on my Weather Report documentary. Reese Parry has mentioned Dave Matx. I am very proud to say that when I was a young drummer, I did a gig supporting Dave Matx, and he came up afterwards, and thank you, Jeffrey Jackson. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Andy, from across the pond. Your videos always make me laugh. Please remember that my videos are for entertainment purposes only. People get really wound up about them, but every time I sit down to think of an idea, I am just trying to do something which will be entertaining for you. Now, what's the entertainment in this? It's the fact that we can have a chat, but also I can show off my encyclopedic knowledge to you. That's the idea, that you can throw drummers at me like Reuben Kincaid, and I can go, I've never heard of that bloke at all, you know. So that's where we're at. I do love these live streams. It's just, I don't know why my picture quality is so bad, and I don't know why I'm on the rubbish microphone. It's gonna show me up again as being an incompetent fool, an incompetent YouTuber. I mean, look at the state of it. Look at the state of it. And then I've bloody got them clean my teeth. I've got toothpaste all down my top as well. I mean, I've got a great big mic here in the thing. It looks professional. I don't know why this did not work. I need to get, I'm going to, next time I do this, right, because I'm building up to some live streaming. And the next time I do this, I will have a person in place to help me with this. I'm not very good on the technical things at all. It always goes wrong for me. I tell you that now. Right. So I do look like I'm in a 90s documentary, don't I? It's awful. Who were the other two drummers on the drum solos on Don Ellis's 5/4 Getaway? I think it could have probably been Ralph Humphrey. I don't know. Not enough knowledge there to be able to get into that. Steve Bohannon, that was the guy on Electric Bath. Was it Steve Bohannon, who died in the car crash straight afterwards and has not gone down in history as the drummer that really pioneered on time signatures at that level? Alien Spore Bomb. There was an Italian prog band with an amazing drummer. I'm having a problem remembering his name. See, Alien Spore Bomb, that's what I'm like. You want to say the name and you think, oh, I've got a good name here. I've got a good name. Come on. And you try and put it forth and you can't remember who it is. Gaylord Birch. You see, I'm just going to have a bit of time. Remember 20 minutes ago when I was trying to think of that drummer from the heavy funk drummer from the Pointer Sisters. Go and check out some Gaylord Birch. I mean, you can't be not funky with a name like Gaylord Birch, can you? I mean, it's like, it's why I'm not funky, because I haven't got a name like Gaylord. I might change my name to Gaylord, actually. Thank you so much, Stephen Evans. Thank you for that. £5. That will be spent on, what would I spend? It's $5, is it? That's virtually £5 now, isn't it? Oh, we would imagine with the exchange rate. Has Trump buggered up your exchange rate yet? Has the dollar fallen down against all the other ones yet? Mike Portnoy, the great Mike Portnoy. You know what Mike's all about? He is a drum hero. He's he's an incredible drummer and he can play everything. You know, has he got the same chops as Mike Mangini? Nowhere near. Nobody has. Mike Mangini's probably got more chops than anybody. That's the peak. You know, but Mike's got something else, and it's charisma and fire and joy. Filthy Animal Taylor, one of the first drummers I absolutely loved, and I'm still knocked out by some of that double bass drumming that he does on Overkill and Bomber. He really was pushing the envelope back then. Someone said Tatsuya Yoshidi. Yeah, I don't know who that is. Furio Charico from Arty Myst. This is really getting obscure. This is the obscure prog lot now. They've come out of the woodwork. I can remember that we used to have this club when I was at university, and it used to have on a Wednesday night the Psychedelic Society, and it was just a drugged out. It was like a drugged out nightclub where this one night they were playing all this way out stuff, right? And they asked me to DJ, and I went even further out. I was playing the heaviest stuff you've ever could think of. I could put on loads of Zappa, Gong, and these people didn't seem to be in the room, but as soon as I started playing this stuff, they appeared and they came up to the DJ booth and they were going, "We love what you're doing." And I was looking at them thinking, where have you come from? I think they lived in the wall. Phil Gould, incredible drummer. Jim Gordon's Apache breaks started hip hop. Jamal Rashid, right? I know all about the Apache breaks. I used to work with rappers. They were always going on and playing it and telling me about it, and I had to learn it, and they'd get the records out. I didn't know it was Jim Gordon. I honestly didn't know it was Jim Gordon. I didn't know. You blow me away there with that. Is that true? That's amazing. Was it Jim Gordon? Of course, Jim Gordon was the great session drummer of the 1970s, played with absolutely everybody. He influenced the likes of Jeff Porcaro and, you know, all those incredible session drummers, Steve Gadd. He is almost like the platonic session drummer. He had mental health issues and ended up killing his mom with a hammer. I didn't want to get into this area on a live stream, but that is actually what happened. And he went to prison for the rest of his life. And he died a couple of years ago, which is a horrible thing, isn't it, really? Alan White is underrated. He is. And I actually think he's let down on Tales from Topographic Oceans. I don't think the drum sounds very good. When I say that, it's good in certain places, but it's not so good on definitely side one. It's just not very good. It's so thin and horrible. You know, so I don't know why that is. Laurie Allen, I know that drummer. Phil Seaman, incredible drummer. Joe Morello, two of the greatest hands in drum history. Two of the greatest hands. If I could have anybody's hands, it would be Joe Morello. Thomas Lang is not bloody awful. I've done tours with him. That guy can play anything, right? He has a reputation of being the druminator, as he's from Austria. So he's played on that, you know, this sort of machine-like drumming. But the guy can play anything, and his feel's incredible. Honestly, if you were stood next to him and watching him play, you would not say that. I've had to do a drum battle with Thomas Lang once in front of about 500 people. And I may as well just walked on stage, bent over, and let him kick me up the bum 8 times, because that's basically what happens. Yeah, Bob Moses, phenomenal drummer, underrated, and at so many important points in music history. Han Benink. Han Benink is an incredible drummer. I have been preparing drummers from the Outer Limits, right, with Tony Oxley, Han Benink, and a whole host of drummers. And when I was looking at the Han Benink solos online, they're absolutely incredible. Not just from a free jazz creative point of view, but from a chops point of view, absolutely incredible. Han Benink, absolutely brilliant. And the other guy's Tony Oxley, a British drummer, played on Extrapolation, but then went on to play free jazz drumming. And when you watch these free jazz drumming, the sense of flow that they have around the kit is I wish I could attain that. It's absolutely incredible. That guy in Duke Ellington's bands in the 40s, that might have been Sam Woodyard, Louis Bellson. Was it Sonny Payne before that? Who was it? Not too sure. Ginger Bacon's drummer. Ginger Bacon. Ginger Bacon. You know him? Cross between Francis Bacon and Ginger Bacon. Ginger Bacon. Ginger Baker, you said he's drumming in Cream annoys you. Go and check out Horses and Trees, the solo album that he did in the 1980s, and then report back about that drumming. It's mighty. Streaky Bacon, that would be Francis Bacon crossed with Ginger Bacon in the Nud. That's what that would be. You see, we don't totally get away from the silliness. Jan Christensen, he died recently, didn't he? Absolutely incredible. Like I really am impressed now. I'm older with light drummers. I was always hitting them too hard as a kid, and then when I got out into doing proper tours and I was playing big venues, you have to hit them hard, or you look like you just don't look very good. So I started to hit them hard, and I hit them too hard. Steve Gadd, of course, started with Chuck Mangione. And Chuck Mangione died, I think, on the same day as Ozzy Osbourne. We have lost 4 legends this week, and I'm going to pay my respects to him. Of course, Ozzy, and that's been a mind-blowing, like, just keeps going on and on. I've done videos today on other subjects, other interviews, and then Ozzy keeps coming up and you have another tribute to him. Chuck Mangione, who was a very, very great player. I believe he started off playing in the Jazz Messengers, and he's actually on a Keith Jarrett album. But of course, he developed a very lucrative style, you know, somewhere between Herb Alpert and Freddie Hubbard, you know, and classic music, a bit Fusaki for me, but he sold lots and lots of records. And that is where Gadd started. I think he was a millionaire. Old Chuck Mangione. He died at the age of 85. Thank you, N Rustica. Thank you so much. Please use a noise gate, for Christ's sake. I don't know what the sound's like. The sound has not worked. I have all my audio stuff here. Look, interface, microphone, it hasn't worked. I started it up and it just defaulted to the laptop. I don't know why. It might have been that I should have had these plugged in before. I'm pretty sure I did. So I do apologize for the sound. Yes, Lalo Schifrin also died a few weeks ago, but also Hulk Hogan has died. You know, so and Hulk Hogan has featured on my channel, you know, because I talked about that song he wrote for that kid that had died of cancer. Have you ever heard that song? It's perhaps the worst song ever made, Hulk Hogan. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called something like Hulk in Heaven or something. Now, of course, now he's passed on. That song takes on a different, you know, character, I suppose. And here in the UK, some of the people outside the UK might not know this lady, but the great Cleo Lane, one of our greatest jazz singers, died at the age of 97. Of course, she was the wife of Johnny Dankworth, who was a very, very important jazz musician in the history of British jazz, something that gets maligned a little bit. Yes, that is right. Tony Levitt also played bass with Chuck Mangione. Chuck Mangione also appeared in The Simpsons at one point. Yes, Matt, Cleo Lane has died, but she was 97. I mean, if I could get to 97, I'll be chuffed. And I won't be chuffed when I pass on, but I'll be chuffed. Oh, yes, I didn't finish my Dave Matx anecdote. It wasn't an anecdote. It was just me blowing sunshine up my own bottom, because Dave actually came up and he said he liked my playing. And he said I played with space and had a good sense of groove. You know, back then. I don't know whether he'd say that now. He was a lovely man and very influential on me. I love his drumming on those. I see my brain start to get scrambled now. Folk guitarist, John Martin albums. John Martin. Who is the best drum machine programmer? It's the guy that worked for, and I wish I could remember his name. He worked for the guy from the Buggles, Trevor Horn. So when Trevor Horn was making all those incredible Frankie Goes to Hollywood albums, he had a guy that was programming drums. Can't remember the name. Was a producer guy, and this was back when it was programming numbers in. That was the only way you could do it, and he was absolutely drum programming genius. And really, Stephen Lipton. Thank you, Mark. My lot are so knowledgeable. Yeah, Stephen Lipton. That's the one. Well done, everybody. You know, someone has put Jimmy Bralower. That's not a real name. Don't you fool me with that rubbish. I'm British. I can see a Carry On style name there, Jimmy Bralower. Buggles video killed the radio star. That is them. You know, Jeff Downs and Trevor Horn. Mr. T, I have so many albums that summer put away and I can't reach them to look at them. Thank you, Lobster, for that. Are you talking to Mr. T from the A-Team? Because if he's there with you, I am very impressed. Now, it's coming up to the hour, and I promised myself that I would do an hour on here. And, of course, the goal that I set, which I can't, you know, you haven't reached the goal yet. But the goal that I set was that if people paid me enough money, I would take my shirt off. And I forgot about that goal. But it's too late now. It's too late now. And so my nipples will stay covered for another day. But here we are near the end, and I am now going to tell you who I think the greatest drummer is of all time. Who have we got up? You're not going to like it. Do you know who I really think is the greatest drummer of all time? You're not going to like it. None of you are going to like it. Right? Billy Cobham's there. I think Buddy Rich, we haven't mentioned him. And when I did this video, I just went for Buddy Rich because I was a much more, I wasn't as a, I wasn't experienced YouTuber then. And I went for the easy one. I honestly think the greatest drummer of all time was Joe Jones. Papa Joe Jones is who I am going for. And nobody mentioned Papa Joe Jones, but your suggestions brought me to him. And as soon as he popped into my head, I thought, it's that guy. Now, why Papa Joe Jones? Well, in the 1920s, jazz is really an adaptation of syncopated marching beats. Right? And that was the groove. And there's a theory, and it's quite contentious, that Native American rhythms were brought in, Latin American rhythms were brought in, and we changed to a 4/4 rhythm in jazz with a walking bass line. And at that point, Joe Jones moved the time from the snare drum to the hi-hat. And in doing that and playing the backbeat and his work with, alongside, was it Jimmy Blanton on bass, or was it the other one? I think it was Jimmy Blanton. He was Duke Ellington. Oh, I hate when this happens. Freddie Green on guitar and, of course, Count Basie on piano. That rhythm section lays the foundation. So as an influential drummer, it's really hard to find the guy that basically invented hi-hat playing and backbeat and all that type of stuff. But if you go and check out Papa Joe Jones, right? If you go and check out some of his solos after this, you will see that he's got incredible chops, incredible control. But this guy played in a way that goes back to those vaudeville drummers, and so he entertains the audience with show, and everything is absolutely elegant. Now, when I was 20 years old, I just wanted my face tore off by Mark Mondesir or Dennis Chambers or Billy Cobham. I just wanted my face tore off by drums. That's what I wanted. Now I'm older, I appreciate people playing at a low volume, being able to play with taste, immaculate time. And Joe Jones has got that in bucket loads, absolutely bucket loads. Now, of course, some of you might be thinking I'm talking about Philly Joe Jones. And I'm not. Philly Joe Jones was called Philly Joe Jones because he wasn't Joe Jones. And Joe Jones was called Papa Joe Jones, right? Papa Smurf had nothing to do with this, Maurice, right? And you are just being cheeky there, right, with your Papa Smurf comment. You know, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to undermine my class here, and I won't have it. Unlike Prince Andrew, Joe Jones never sweats. No. But he was Larry. I've spoken to people who knew him in the 70s, and I think by that time he was quite grumpy and Larry. But I'm going with Joe Jones. I know this is contentious, but that's what you all wanted. We've just gone past the hour. I am now going to sign off to you all. Next time I do this, I promise you the quality will be better. I won't need a noise gate, and the picture quality will be better. This was an experiment. It went so well on the live stream. It was all brilliant. I don't know why this didn't work. I really don't. But we got there in the end. You know I love you all, don't you? You do know that. And I'm not joking. Even Exy Music, who's a troublemaker, I still love him very much. Because when I see him, I go, oh, he's been there since the beginning. So many of you have. Right. And I have to say, without you lot watching this channel, you saved my bacon. My ginger bacon was saved by you guys. It's lovely to talk to you. Because, 3 years ago, I had no job. I didn't know how I was going to make it. I never thought I'd be able to just squeeze enough money out of YouTube to get by. But you lot watching this every single week is just keeping me and my family going. And I know that although I'm contentious and a pain in the bum and I get on people's nerves, I know that the hardcore people know that I'm just... You know where I'm coming from, and I really am genuinely, and I'm seeing all those hearts go up, and so I wish you all the best, and I hope I can keep making videos that will make you laugh and make you smile and make you remember why we love this music so much, because I think all I am really any good at is transmitting how much I love the music. And so it's lovely to be able to do that. And then it's coming back at me now with you. I can feel it here, even though I'm sat in my little bedroom up the corner. I mean, John Coltrane painting in the background, you know, and I'm all on my own, but I don't feel like I'm on my own because I've got 170 people in here. So I thank you all so much. Jeff Taywatts, don't mention him. He's too good. I am going to switch off now. I will see you all, and let's see what happens with this video, whether it looks rubbish. I did have an SM57. It didn't work. It didn't work. Thank you all. Thank you, Morris. Greg. Thank you, Greg. I'm going to do some shouts outs to everybody. CCG, Morton Films. Of course, Mr. Hartler Taylor. You know, what? Yes, he without doubt, Carl Stack, Darren Carpenter. I know all these names. I don't know Iron and Bob. Mr. Hartley Taylor, of course. DeSoto Mike. I think I've heard that one. I know all these names. Carl Carstack, he's putting a lot in. Super Strike 9. Lobster, of course. He's off his head. Greg A. Michael Lang. El Justicerio. Matt Parker. Jeff Bosco, Jeffrey Jackson. Just put anything in. Just put two fingers up like Jeffrey Jackson. I'll say it. 3HHM, Stephen Bricks, Super Strike, the waste face of Darley Giri, David Erling II, Boudica Marches to Rome, Henry Darker, of course, the great Henry Darker, the future of music as we know it. Stone Sky Studios. Lobster, we've done you. You're just all getting in now. You're being cheeky, trying to get to Alice Fegan done in. Sasha, thank you very much. Henry Dark, I reckon I can come on next week and just do this for an hour and you'll all love it, won't you? You'll all love it to get your name shouted out. Makes you know you're alive. You don't have to go out and do some graffitiing now, do you? You know, you have to go and draw that on your neighbour's garage. Thank you all. I think we've done this. What was that? Academiciated. Chris Galler-Eren. Thank you. XC Music. Love you, XC Music. I do. Stephen Bricks. Ben Finlay. Of course, I love you, Ben. And I have got your video and I'll get it done. Ron Nelson, Alan B, Alien Spore Bomb. You know, have I done everybody now? There can't be that many in this. There's this Andy Edwards chap. That's me, that is. Darren Carpenter. I think I've mentioned your name. Optiblivia. Love to you, Optiblivia. Martin V. Prog Rock Rules. Love to you all. David Erlincoln II. The Frost drummer. There's been many drummers for Frost, but there was only one in the beginning. Not the best one, mine, but there was one in the beginning. Who's the best drummer to play for Frost? I'll tell you one guy that just frightens me. Oh, I won't say that. It's just going to cause trouble. I don't need it, do I? Prog Rock Rules, you were a new patron. Thank you so much. I haven't done much on Patreon this week. I do apologise. I've been doing a whole bunch of radio shows for Patreon. I've been enjoying it, but I'll tell you this now at the end of the thing before I go. I had two of the most mind-blowing guitarists in my studio this week, and we filmed a video. It was my old mate Fayan Zek, and it was also, I don't know if you know this guy, but Chanan Hanspal, who is the Zappa expert and keeps interviewing Steve I, and he was just off the scale. And we decided to go in and play almost free jazz. It wasn't what you expect. It wasn't like just some funky grooves and some fast guitar playing. It was full on, and I've decided to make this video into a full psychedelic experience. Fi has composed some more music for it and he's passed it over. We did a whole bunch of absolutely mad stuff. It had Will Allman on bass. This stuff is out there, and I don't think anybody on a YouTube, you know, I know Starkey Puppy, they get and play that stuff in the studio, but this stuff is out there. It's really out there, and the guitar playing is just terrifying. So that's what's been stopping me from doing the other stuff. And now someone's got onto the Ramones, so we have to switch off now, Dr. Insomnia. You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing, don't you, Dr. Insomnia? See you all. I am definitely going to press end stream, and it will be over. Oh, I've just got £5. Look, I'm not in it for the money. He said lyingly. Right. I'm going to count down from 5, and then we'll be gone. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye.